Can you confirm whether PSPC is still pursuing restitution agreements with those suppliers?
Yes.
As many of you know, Northern Perspective really began to gain traction when we started covering the committee hearings into the ArriveCan scandal. Viewers became familiar with names like Christian Firth, Darren Anthony, and Cameron McDonald. We learned about companies like Dalian, Cordex, and GC Strategies. I learned later that in covering that, it would lead me to doing Northern Perspective full time. But for Canadians, some big questions remain. Was anyone going to be held criminally accountable? Were we ever going to see the government get any of our money back? And when would we finally be able to get some of these real answers? Well, turns out when is today. We didn't get all of them, but we're starting to get some. Let's take a look. From the Hill Times, feds recover $4.1 million from subcontractors who fraudulently overbilled the government. Public Services and Procurement Canada is seeking to recoup another $400,000, but offered no updates on retrieving money from ArriveCan contractor GC Strategies. The federal government has recovered $4.1 million from subcontractors who fraudulently overbilled the government, MPs heard from government officials in a parliamentary committee last week. Ariane Reza, Deputy Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada, or PSPC, told the House Government Operations and Estimates Committee, or the mighty OGO, on October 30th that the department was recovered $4.1 million out of the $4.5 million it has been looking to recoup from subcontractors who fraudulently billed the government. The remaining $400,000 is being, quote, pursued through legal actions, end quote, Reza said in response to questions by Conservative MP Kelly Block, the MP for Carlton Trail Eagle Creek. Reza told MPs that in some cases, the suppliers were unaware that the subcontractors they had hired to work on federal contracts were overbilling the government. Sure they were. Those subcontractors, quote, no longer have any capacity to work for the government, end quote, she noted. At the October 30th House Government Operations and Estimates Committee meeting, Conservative MP Kelly Block questioned department officials about the process of recouping money from contractors who fraudulently billed the government. So, as we like to always go from the source, we set about finding that committee meeting, and sure enough, we were able to find it. This is Kelly Block questioning the officials at the time.
Minister, last year the Deputy Minister confirmed that PSPC has identified a number of instances, and I'm quoting now, a number of instances of individual subcontractors fraudulently billing the Government of Canada, and that the department is, again quoting, seeking restitution to the Crown. Can you confirm whether PSPC is still pursuing restitution agreements with those suppliers?
Yes, since that time, there was approximately $4.5 million that we had to recover. We've recovered $4.1 million of it. The remainder we are now in court actions to follow up with.
Just to confirm that I heard you correctly, you said there was $4.5 million that you needed to recover, and you've recovered $4.1 million?
That's correct. $400,000 we are pursuing through court actions.
Okay, thank you. How many suppliers did that involve?
Thank you for the question. As you'll recall, this was about subcontractors, so the number of suppliers, I think, and I'll have to confirm momentarily, there was a number of suppliers, a number of departments. We discovered it with the new tools that we have in terms of doing some data mining and looking at payments. And then I think that we had discovered that there was 9 cases where we were identifying this, and the subs were involved, where I think about 3 subcontractors that were overbilling across several contracts.
Provide that documentation. I'll repeat that because my mic just came on. Would you be able to provide that documentation to the committee?
We certainly can. We have provided, I think, the list that was updated, but we can see what we can do to provide it for you. I think as well that there's some updated information that's publicly available on our website in terms of our integrity work.
Can you also confirm whether any of these suppliers that were involved in the fraudulent billing cases continue to hold active government contracts today? I'm sorry, would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, please, because as you know, Catherine is the ADM responsible for oversight, so she'll have the up-to-date information. If you mind, thank you.
Thank you. Can you confirm whether any of the suppliers involved in these fraudulent billing cases continue to hold active government contracts today?
So I need to clarify one aspect before answering your question. We need to remember that the fraudulent overbilling occur by individual subcontractor. So those individual subcontractor, their security clearance has been revoked and they can no longer work on those contracts. They have been hired by multiple prime contractors, and sometimes those prime contractors were not aware of the overbilling, but they accepted to reimburse us because the responsibility was to them under their contract with us.
So am I to understand that these subcontractors could be subcontracted by suppliers that actually have security clearances, and there would be no way for PSPC to catch that?
I'm not sure if I understood correctly your question. Oui.
My understanding is that those subcontractors that have been identified no longer have any capacity to work for the government of Canada.
Okay. So here's the good news and the bad news. So the good news is that the government has recouped $4.1 million of taxpayer money that we spent on this piece of garbage called ArriveCan. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's still about 95% of the money that's out there on this piece of garbage app that we call ArriveCan. That's the bad news. So it's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. They're going after the other 400,000, which is good. But the other question that Kelly asked, which is a very important question, is so any of these suppliers that hired these people, are they still able to get contracts? And by the answer of PSPC, that answer would be yes. And their justification is as well, in some cases, like they didn't know. But they paid us back because, you know, they're responsible as per the contract. So that's fine. But they're also responsible for finding good people. And if they're not able to find good people, why are you continuing to deal with them? Now, some people may say, well, you know, like sometimes people make mistakes and et cetera. That's fine. But I've dealt with staffing agencies, which is what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about suppliers. We're talking about staffing agencies. That's what they are. Or recruiters, whatever you want to call them. And there have been cases where recruiters have actually hired somebody in and recommended somebody to an organization. And it was later found out that that person had a warrant out for their arrest from the United States because of insider trading. And then they moved up here. Like it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And this happened over a decade ago. Guess what happened? We never dealt with that recruiter ever again. And they would say, well, you know, how could we have known? How could we have known? You do a background check. You do a reference check. Was this the only time they were overbilling? Who knows? Did you do a reference check, recruiters? Because you're just saying, here's the resume of the person. That's their job. Their job is to screen them. So if they're letting multiple people work for the government that are actually overbilling them, it's a little fishy, a little sketchy. I'd be moving on to other recruiters. Well, how could we have known? That's your job to know. Bye. You don't like it? Don't be a recruiter. Case closed. That's my stance on it. That's what it's always been. The whole point of a company using a staffing firm is so that they don't have to do all the other work in order to find people. That's the value. That's why you're paying the premium of a staffing firm. So if they're not doing that job, then they're not providing you the service that they're supposed to be providing, are they? So I don't accept that these suppliers are still getting government contracts. And the argument that, well, you know, these subcontractors aren't going to be allowed to work for the government of Canada. I hope so. I really do. Because otherwise you're going to be overbilled again. But I was also interested in hearing something. Well, you know, in most cases, the supplier wasn't aware. What do you mean most? What do you mean most? That means that there are some cases where the supplier was aware that the overbilling was going on. Maybe that was GC strategies. Don't know. But let's just get back to the positive, folks. At least we're seeing money returned to the government. And at least we're seeing taxpayer dollars go, you know, the other way instead of into these contractor pockets. So we'll take our wins where we can get them these days. That's a good thing. But I still want them to keep pushing for more money. And this is why we, and you may have seen Vesper's posts online, we are continuing to follow these cases, and we're continuing to follow the SDTC scandal. And you know, there is some updates that are happening in the background, because Canadians were concerned about them then, and we don't want to let these just die on the floor. So rest assured, we're still following and tracking these scandals in the background, and whenever we have some pertinent updates, we'll be sharing it with you on Northern Perspective.